Welcome, Game Dev Adventures, to the Indie Game Lunch Hour. Today we're talking with Michael Shalby about getting the most out of your game by getting the most out of your voice acting.
The Indie Game Lunch Hour.
In our live magical podcast, we give game developers the chance to hear stories of breaking in from industry experts, as well as directly ask them questions about their areas of expertise in the second half of each episode. As always, I'm your host here, the headmaster at the Indie Game Academy, Willem Delventhal, and joining me today is Michael Shalby. Michael is a voice actor and casting and performance director in the game industry and has a lot to say about fitting voice acting into your worlds. I am so excited to have you on the show, Michael. Voice acting is one of those kind of like sleeper communities among our crowd. There's way more people who want to do it or dream of doing it than I expect in this community. So welcome to the show. What are you having for lunch here today?
Well, it's 9 a.m. here over on the West Coast, so less of lunch and more of breakfast, which was a protein shake, a Cliff Bar, and some Adderall. So people ask me all the time, like, because I coach a lot of talent too, like, how do neurodivergent people like get ahead in this industry despite our disability? I'm like, girl, this is not a disability. It's a prerequisite in this industry. Nobody that is mentally stable is a voice actor.
I think that's true of all game dev in general, to be honest, especially these days.
But yeah, it is also true for games. If we were stable, we would be in a more stable industry.
Yeah.
So thank you for having me on.
Insecurity. Absolutely.
Stoked to talk about all sorts of stuff here today. I have a feeling that I'm gonna not be able to get through everything that I want to get through. So feel free, anybody that is listening, to reach out to me. You can either find me all over the place at actor Michael Schwalbe or Discord Michael Schwalbe. Just send me a message or something. I'm happy to talk with you. Anyway, where should I start, Willem?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, welcome to the show. Thank you for giving that offer. As always, we'll include any links pertinent from the episode down below if you're listening to the recording, so you can hit up Michael. But the place that we like to start is always the same, which is to tell us the Faded origin story. So, Michael, how did you get to where you are in the game industry today?
Yeah, so everybody's voice acting journey is just so different. So this is not a one-size-fits-all approach, but for me, I was trying to hack it in the music industry. I am a professional metal singer and other genre singer too, was singing with a number of different a cappella groups, choral groups, like church things. I was fronting a metal band at the time, and so I was also working at Warner Music Group for one of their distributed labels in sales, of all things, and just trying to like make connections, whatever. But the music industry in like 2010 was just crashing and burning and dying, and so I was like, what else can I do with my voice that is not music and that might actually, and I was thinking that could pay me while I'm trying to like tour and stuff. And so I was like, well, this voice acting thing has always sounded pretty fun, and if I could sell music, I could sell myself. So I just started like really pounding the pavement, like for commercial and corporate stuff, and doing YouTube videos for people and like local radio ads and things. And this is again around like 2011-ish, and so got a few opportunities through the label to do like videos for our artists and stuff, and eventually they're like, hey, can you do this like CMA promotion for Blake Shelton? And I'm like, well, hold on, are you gonna pay me? And they're like, well, no, you're on the payroll. I'm on the payroll at Word Music across the street, not in Artist Creative Media at Warner Music. Like, that's not the same payroll. But they're like, well, we don't have a budget, which is a tale as old as time. So that was really when it was like, if you can be good enough for Blake Shelton, you could be good enough for anybody. Like, okay, I'll do it. So I just quit my full-time salaried job without ever having gotten a single paid role in voice acting, just supremely confident that I could do it, and then claimed I was a professional and never proved myself wrong. And so then that pivoted into games a few years later after I was like doing paid work and but still mostly commercial corporate stuff. And I went out to GDC and I started pitching myself as an actor and talking to game devs to hear what they needed. and like very quickly learned that like there's a huge population of game developers and small studios that like had maybe one or two people in the audio team or whatever it is and had no clue where to find actors, how to cast actors, how to deal with actors. And they're like, almost like, can you cast our game? Do you know actors? Like, yeah, I could do that. And so I just started doing it and was very good at it. And I knew, just a ton of actors already. So I started compiling a list. I now have about 450, 500 talent that are all like vetted professional talent with like very solid studios, all sorts of countries around the world, diverse accents and backgrounds and identities, orientation. So I tried really hard to have kind of somebody for any role that pops up, especially because authenticity in casting is so important. And so yeah, it's been 13 years now that I've been doing this. I've contributed to more than 100 games, whether on whatever side of the table I'm on, and most recently was senior voice director for Zenless Zone Zero's English dub for about a year and a half. And yeah, back freelancing. Here we are.
Wow. Yeah, what a good. I'm already seeing people in chat talk about how many insights they're getting from this. I think one of the reasons I love starting with the origin story is because so many people dream of working in the game industry one way or another. And this is a space, in particular, voice acting, that I think a good number of people are uncertain how it even works, let alone how to get started with it. So to hear your story is a great intro for a lot of folks. I think it's pretty amazing that you were like, I have a salaried job, but maybe this is the gateway to something more. And clearly that paid off for you.
Yeah, I mean, I at the time it's like there was no upward advancement. I'm on this like sales team at a dying record label and
Right.
like watching all the other people like going under. And now to be clear, you have a lot more freedom to take those kind of massive leaps of faith when you have the kind of privilege that I have. I come from a family that had some intergenerational wealth. I didn't have a ton of living expenses or student debt, so thank you very much to my grandparents for that. So like,
Mhm.
I probably would have like done much more gradual transition. Strongly feel like I would have still gotten to where I have gotten today. It would have probably just taken a little bit longer because honestly, the first like year I made like no money, so
Yeah.
that was not a smart choice, but it was basically like my plan B is make plan A work. But even with my help, I still like used almost all of my savings and stuff. I ended up selling a massive Magic the Gathering card collection that was, uh, no,
Oh,
so I mean, I was in it, I was really
tragic.
dedicated. No,
Yeah.
I spent thousands and thousands of dollars like making ends meet while I tried to get it off the ground. That collection nowadays would have been worth about $250,000. At
Oh,
the time, it was about 15,000, but it was
what
a
what is the
calculated
card?
decision.
Yeah, what's the
Uh,
card you most regret selling from that collection, just out
oh,
of
I had
curiosity?
everything. I had full
Okay.
power nine. I had a full
Oh,
all dual lands. I had everything,
oh,
but the
couple
player
of Mox
community
rubies in there,
sucked in
Mox
the
gems.
city, and they were all
Oh,
toxic. And Wizards was about to get rid of the reserve list, so I thought. So I was like, well, I better get rid of it now. And also, I was like, no, nobody is ever going to want to sleep in this room that has more than 200 pounds of Magic cards in it, like strewn everywhere. So if I want to get laid, I need to get these out of here.
it was a calculated gamble. There was more to it than just the dollar.
Yeah, it was.
I
This
love
is
it.
multifaceted. This is
Right,
real
right,
life,
right.
baby.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I think I once again, I love asking the story of how people get started because it's always really colorful. There's folks that had it a little bit more direct. There's folks that had it a little bit more indirect. There's so many career transitioners in our industry, for instance. There's so many people who had to kind of struggle and scrape to break into the industry. I'm somebody who deliberately tries to break down gatekeeping as much as possible, but one way or another, this is an industry that has far more people who wish to work in it than has actual seats to work in,
Totally. And
and
voice
therefore,
acting is maybe
yeah,
even worse.
yeah,
Voice acting is for any aspiring actors in here. It was oversaturated 13 years ago, and it is way more oversaturated now. It's really,
absolutely.
really really overpopulated.
So you can't help me break in. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so
I can
let's
tell
jump into
you
the
where to go,
topic.
but then you have to hustle like harder than 1,000 other people, and that's really
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. That's one of the. So there's the ever horrifying stat of how many juniors actually break in every year, and on average, it's only about 3% of applicants. That's game industry, period, let alone
Yeah,
voice acting. So that means inherently you got to be hustling harder than 97 other people at minimum.
yeah,
All right, so topic of the day: getting the most out of your game by getting the most out of your voice acting. This is a community of people who are largely indie. Basically, everybody who's
yeah.
listening right now either is actively starting a studio, is actively running a studio, or dreams of one day starting a studio. And many people, of course, want to work at existing places before then or in the interim. So tell us, for the indie lifeblood, for the what I view as the punk rock of the game industry, how does voice acting slip into that?
Sure. Well, obviously, not every game needs voice acting. In a lot of games, it can actually be detrimental, particularly if your studio doesn't have a writer on
Mhm.
staff. You probably shouldn't have dialogue that is spoken because you can get away with a lot of writing sins in a text box or with like a vocoder going like, but if it's spoken aloud, suddenly your dialogue like immediately can hit the uncanny valley really fast. So having a writer is a prerequisite. You want really good scripts. But well, really, like if you're doing your first studio, you've got an artist, you've got a programmer, you've got level design, you've probably got an audio person. I hope you do, but you probably don't know any actors, and that means that your actors that you maybe run across are the like random Twitter people, like you don't know where to find them, and nothing will kill your game faster. Nothing kills a good game faster than having bad voiceover because it's
Uh-huh.
just immediately like the only thing that you can think about is just like this awful nails in a chalkboard like performance or audio quality or whatever. So, and everybody has those questions. And honestly, it's not even for just new studios or small studios. Like big studios run into those things if they've never, done voice stuff before. You might have questions like what if I have 20 NPCs? Does that mean I need 20 actors? Or like what if it's a card game? I'm making another Slay the Spire, which I did all the voice work for.
Really?
Did yeah.
All the things you've mentioned, this is where I'm fanboying the most. Slay the Spire is
Oh,
personally,
nice.
yeah, oh my God, I
Yeah,
love it.
somehow I became the voice of like the card game genre. I did like Monster Train. I've done Shadowverse. I've done Eternal CCG. I've done a lot of card games for some reason. But
One of our foundry teams, which are our student startups, is building a sci-fi deck builder. So I'll tell them to hit you up.
oh, very good. Well, now you know somebody. But but yeah, like what if you have 200 different cards? How do you handle that?
Mhm.
And wrangling a dev team is hard enough, but like how do you wrangle 20 actors? Well, anyway, I that's where I can make your life a lot easier. And I'm not just going to sell myself this whole time. I'm going to tell you how to like do a lot of this shit yourself. Oh, am I allowed to swear on this? This is probably
Yes,
family
let's
friendly.
PG-13-ish, but
Okay.
so yeah, a couple tasteful swears, totally fine.
Yeah. So basically the starting questions to ask yourself are like what is the actual scope of voice that like I think would be beneficial because the reality is people don't listen. Like people don't have long attention spans anymore. And so I've been on a lot of games where they've like repeatedly had to scale back the voiceover because testing and whatever showed that just nobody was listening to it. For
Hmm.
a good example is Ori and the Will o' the Wisps. I did
Mm.
3 different sessions for Ori where every time the amount of voice in my lines was getting scaled back because people were just skipping right through it. And that was in a what's called a conlang, a constructed language. So especially when the words don't make any sense, like Simlish, for instance, people are not just going to sit and listen at length. So
Mhm.
if you can get away with less, you should probably do less, and then that'll make your sessions easier, your budget easier to wrangle. And so that could look like doing one sentence out of like a block of text. You'll still get the flavor and the vibe of the person, but you don't need to say like every single word, right? Um, So identifying first what the scope of your voice work is
Hmm.
critical. And then you want to make sure you've got resources that you can give actors that will actually like get you what you want. So many times we'll be given casting calls and then you send auditions in to the client. Well, turns out that actually this is none of these submissions fit what we're looking for because they didn't describe properly what they actually wanted. They were either lacking direction or lacking backstory, and so everybody assumed the character was a different vibe than they actually were. So getting together with a team and like deciding the attributes, the collective attributes that you can all agree on for what these characters really represent and making sure you get it right the first time because like it's a waste of your time to listen through a bunch of stuff and realize it was wrong. It's a waste of our time to record stuff that then
Yeah.
you didn't want, so and God forbid that like you get to the sessions and then find that out, then you've wasted a lot of money because like, oh well, it turns out the person we hired wasn't the right fit for it. Now we got to recast, and that's a nightmare.
That's
So
actually
anyway,
a big one. Yeah, if I can interrupt here because this is a
yeah, go
deliberate
for it.
question I actually
I
wanted
will
to
keep
ask.
talking forever, so please interrupt me.
It's perfect. This is great because I love interrupting. So this is a question that I actually wonder about. This is a question that I actually wonder about with voice acting and with production cycles. So I work so heavily in the indie space. At what stage of the production process does it make sense to actually start recording? I'm a game
Good
designer.
question.
Yeah, which means there's so much
Late,
iteration. So yeah, exactly that. So tell us when.
late. There
Yeah.
have been many games, and not even just games, but like lots of different projects that like everybody gets so hype, especially the like writers, the creators, the artists, and they get so hyped to like, I want to know who the voice is. I want to hear like what the real performance is going to be for this person that I invented, and like they put the cart way before the horse, and then it turns out that like, oh well, we're not actually going to get to a part where we need to record this stuff for like another year. Or worse, they decide to go ahead and record it, and then oops, a year goes by, and well, the scope of the game has dramatically changed, and either a large chunk of what you recorded doesn't even make it in, or we've changed several of the narrative like devices, and a bunch of plot points are different, so we have to rewrite the script. So, like, you ideally want voice as late in the process as you can because
Hmm.
the script needs to be completely done, completely approved and finished. There are no further changes happening, no renaming of characters, no whatever. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I like don't mind at all if you want to get like way ahead of yourself because then I just get paid more. So, but like help me make your life easier by making sure that everything is finished and polished and delivered and approved like before you do any of the voice stuff. It'll make everybody's life way easier. And one
Amazing.
of the worst things, and not to, I try to avoid throwing clients under the bus, but one thing that happened a lot with at MiHoYo was that because live services games are just such a constant content mill,
Hmm.
sometimes the different silos can get out of sync. And so you'll get like the script people are like way behind on getting the scripts finished and approved and translated from where we are recording. And I work pretty fast, so that happened a lot. So then they're rushing out scripts to us that are not at the stage they need to be. Well, in some cases, that would mean we would then have to go back and re-record stuff or editing decided actually those lines needed to be different in whatever way.
Hmm.
Or at the worst case was like they decided one of the characters needed a totally different voice print. So we had to go back and re-record that entire like chapter for that character because the it didn't line up with what they actually wanted it to sound like. So it again, I just got paid more, but it was a big headache. Oh, that actually the reason I brought that up was because what really made it a headache for me was because the scripts were getting edited like sometimes after the sessions. We had like sometimes two, three, four different versions of the script in different stages of like approval and completion, and trying to
Mhm.
keep like a master script that is like, these are the lines that are in the game, these are the that was really, really hard. So, yeah.
Hmm. Is there, so are there, this is definitely interesting. I work so much in the early stages of production where we're prototyping, testing, iterating, and shifting, like pivoting pretty hard. Um, what are sort of the typical almost production stages of voice acting? And are there like early stages where maybe you have a couple of test lines that you can throw into a prototype or something like that?
Yeah, so well, there's a game that I'm working on right now that we're starting out, and we are doing a prototype for the entire game, because in
Mhm.
today's world, you usually need to get funding. You're not like bootstrapping your title, especially if it takes a couple $1 million to produce the game. So we're making a vertical slice, like proof of concept demo of the game, showing off the mechanics and a couple of the characters. And in this case, it's well, actually, I can't talk about that, but can't talk about who is getting in it.
I
But
guess.
we got a couple really cool people that fans will really care about into the demo, and then they're going to use that demo for like pitching the rest of the full game. So there are definitely times when like you will want to do some voice stuff early. Um, Oh, another good example would be System Shock, and I can actually talk about that. So, System Shock, I cast and directed the remake for Night Dive, and we did the original demo for that back in like 8 years ago, like way early, and we recorded Rachel Messer and a couple other people for the demo, and then they used that demo for Kickstarter for all the other stuff. Raised
Mhm.
$1.5 million, and but then we didn't do the actual like full games voice acting for like another 6 years for another. There, that was a tumultuous production cycle or development cycle, but uh, there are lots of reasons to make a demo or to do partial voice before you do the full thing.
Mm. Okay. And then what are just for the sake of like the layman understanding the voice production process, what are kind of your production steps? Like, what are the major milestones? You start with a meeting where you talk about
Yeah.
emotional direction, then you do a test line. What are those steps?
Yeah, so I usually will get together and ask them like, what are the number of characters you envision having voice? Do you have casting like materials ready for those, which includes like bio, artwork, or at least concept art? It really makes a huge difference. And the more like physical stuff you can show on it, the better. Because even like having large teeth or a big nose or like they're heavy set, all that stuff can impact the performance that the talent is delivering. So
Hmm.
artwork is really helpful. Background and motivation, their upbringing, like the more info you can give, the more like nuanced a portrayal an actor can give. So I want to make sure that they've got that kind of stuff ready, and then like some tentative script lines for the
Hmm.
auditions. And again, they don't even have to be like from the actual script. They just have to be indicative of the kind of person that you're wanting this to be.
Hmm.
And so then once they have all that stuff together, then I will usually ask them like, what is your development timeline? Like, where are we
Hmm.
at in the production? And if they're like, yeah, we're still working on like level design and stuff, it's like, okay, well, then let's wait until you are like basically done. I mean, the game is needs to be basically finished before it really makes sense to put this in, because implementation of voice lines is not that time consuming.
Hmm.
And depending on like the scope of the game, we did 16,000 lines of dialogue for ZZZ or whatever. So that's going to be different than your indie title that might have 500 lines of dialogue.
Hmm.
But and then it also depends on like what the studio in particular has on staff in terms of like their production capabilities. Because if I'm just here to deliver them the raw session audio, and then they've got an editor and a like audio person to do implementation, then it's going to be a lot less time consuming for me. But if I have to, hire a production assistant, and we have to like segregate out, splice together, like, or not splice together, but splice apart individual lines and like put the VO IDs so that then they can just get stuck right in. Um, then I'm going to need to do more work. Or if there's localization involved, if we're translating this into multiple other languages or something, which I don't do, but I work very closely with a localization studio that I like a lot.
Hmm.
So we can do that. But it's, just how many steps in the process we need to do. Did that actually answer your question?
Well, so almost. It gave us a good idea of the negotiation, I think. What I'm really curious about is like, yeah, what are the production steps, production milestones
Oh,
for
okay.
voiceover for your team? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because it's kind of a like an hour by hour thing, it's less of like exact milestones and more of
Hmm.
like just here's how far through the process we are. So if I've got a script like and say it's 1,000 lines, and then I know that like on average for like combat barks, battle efforts and stuff, we can get through at least 60 or more an hour, maybe 100 if there's no reference audio. Because anytime you're like basing it off of Chinese or Japanese like original stuff, it's you got to take time to listen to the references and stuff. So if we
Hmm.
can do 60 to 100 lines an hour, we can get through that in like 10 hours. And so then I can just give like, yep, after week one, we're 60% of the way through this. We've
Hmm.
got that is over at the production assistant that they're putting it in the Dropbox right now for like getting those, the keeper takes edited out. Um, so it's usually like delivered the script to me that is approved, and then I will like report back as to what the schedule is for like a Google Calendar for like when the actors are coming in.
Hmm.
And the client can't often will sit in on all or some of those sessions, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's just up to me. And
Hmm.
then I kind of just give like okay, after this week we got through these pages of the script and on the master script, which is usually like a shared Google sheet or something, we've
Hmm.
got like
Hmm.
the lines we've done are highlighted and the ones that are not highlighted we haven't done yet. So then we just keep knocking chunks out of it until we're all done.
Awesome. Okay. So there's this kickoff step, sounds like, where you're kind of negotiating, talking, getting the script, getting feedback. Is there I've had people just do like test recordings. Is that kind of its own step where you're negotiating those test
The
recordings
test
with your client?
recordings are usually the auditions, so by
Okay.
the time that you auditioned for the character, you're trusting that that's going to be indicative of the quality of audio that the talent is going to have available.
Okay.
And so if there is a home studio involved, sometimes we'll schedule like a 10 or 10 minute or 5 minute like pre-session like
Hmm.
audio check just to make sure that the tech issues are sorted in advance so we're not wasting
Hmm.
studio time. But depending on the size of the game or the budget, we can also just have everybody going to like a central studio in Los Angeles or something. That's pretty common,
Okay.
and we'll go from there.
Okay, sweet. And then is there some kind of after the recording? So we've got, it sounds like you kind of break it down into milestones that make sense. We're going to be able to deliver chapter one by this date, chapter two by this date, or these characters by
Yeah.
this date. Is there any kind of, with so many other creative fields like our visual artists, we're going to go back and forth with the client a little bit. They're going to be like, that's not quite right. With voice acting, because it's so binary, is there that kind of is there that like polish process, or is it mostly you've delivered it and now it's done?
Yeah, it's mostly that. If
Okay.
if I deliver it and it's not right, it means I fucked up.
Hmm.
It means that there was a miscommunication or the script was wrong or something like that. Because the reason that if I'm directing the sessions, because sometimes the budget is just not there for a director, and so you hire people, and then you say, "Here's your script, record it on your own time, and just send it in," and then that's fine and normal. But then in that
Hmm.
case, there usually will be like, okay, it's understood that you'll give us one round of free performance related retakes if
Okay.
there's like problems with the stuff just because there wasn't a live director there to like give it the green light.
Yeah.
But if I am there and I do say, okay, yeah, keeper B, then that B take is the keeper, and it just is. And because you can't really bring them in for like a one line retake, or you're going to be paying for the minimum session fee, and that sucks. So, but usually we will get a minimum of two and up to 10 if it's really struggling takes before I give the thumbs up and we move on. I'm pretty meticulous about whether a take is good or not.
Nice. Okay, sweet. So then if I had to simplify this process down, this is we have people listen who are in all the different fields, and mostly people who are listening are more junior. So I like to kind of get, the simple takeaways for them.
Sure.
It sounds like the like four main kind of stages is something of a kickoff. You're negotiating, you're talking. The audition phase, the client is maybe listening to some of those test recordings and giving some feedback. You're finding the right person.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
to talk about the casting process, because I haven't really talked
Hmm.
about that yet. So usually what will happen is I get those casting sheets, the materials from the client. I then will send out a blast to my email list that I said I got like 500 people on it. That then usually it's like 24 hours, maybe 48 hours. Like actors, we work very quickly because it's just we're used to it. So I will then have a Dropbox link. They upload stuff, and then I will ask the client like, how many shortlist submissions do you want? And either there's like three options. Either I just send everything I get to the client because some clients just want to hear everybody.
Hmm.
Most of the time they will say, give me your top 10. And then I'll listen through everybody, pick the 10 that I think are the most competitive and or the most like representative of the options available, the choices that people are making. And then
Hmm.
I'll still send them the others, but in a different folder that's like the non-shortlist. Or if it's like a game like Slay the Spire or Hearthstone or whatever it
Hmm.
is, then there's the client doesn't want to listen through 700 different possibilities. And if it's like a one or two line character, they don't really need to make that choice. So for games like that, usually it'll be like for the five main characters, give me your top 10. But for all the like 1 to 5 line NPCs, you just pick your top pick, Michael. And then it's like, okay, cool.
Awesome.
And what usually will happen in that case is then we'll cast the five main people, and then in the sessions, as I'm listening to the performances, we'll just like throw NPCs at them to see like, okay, well, can you do this guy justice? Okay, yeah, that was good. We'll keep that. Okay, well then let's do these other two. And so you kind of fit the other pieces in like kind of jigsaw-esque during the sessions.
Okay, nice, awesome. And then once you have those all established, we move into recording in milestones, which are going to break up with the client, and then there might be retakes as a fourth step, depending on the client. But that's actually not as common in this space.
It's not super common. What might be common is you find out that, like, especially in a game like ZZZ, we had hundreds of characters, whatever, that you find out, like, oh, there were 3 quest NPCs that just didn't get into anybody.
Yep,
And then I'll just be
we
like, all
forgot
right,
about
well,
them.
I'll do that, or the
Yeah.
engineer will do that, and so we'll just like knock that out.
Got it. Awesome. All right. So it's about time for us to switch to questions from the community. But before then, I interrupted you. I don't know, 7 years ago. Is there anything else that you want to throw in? Any other lessons to give?
Well, I want to talk attempting to talk quickly about the union versus non-union aspect of it, because that's
Okay.
really important right now. Union actors have been on strike since last July, fighting for AI protections in our contracts, and it's going pretty well. Way better than the strike in 2016, 2017 did. And the really exciting thing for new developers and new studios is that the union has done a amazing job of listening to the community and putting out new contracts that reflect the needs of game developers in at all different stages. Because previously there was the interactive media agreement, and it was really restrictive, and it really did not do a good job of catering to smaller studios. It was like 4 hour minimum, like $1,000 roughly, and worse, it capped a session at 3 different voices. well, what am I supposed to do if I'm doing, Slay the Spire? It's got it like 22, and that is like 7 sessions, but we don't need seven. That was a two-person development team. They didn't have $7,500 to throw a voiceover at the time. And
Hmm.
most games are like that. You have an RTS game. You've got 50 different units, and all of them just go, Roger, sir, moving out. Go, go, go. Like, I don't need 4 hour session to do those, so the new contracts are way, way better. And they just released game jam and student waivers so that low budget, no budget projects, even down to like your indie game jams at the IGDA or at your student project for your final development project for your degree, you can work with union talent if you can find them that are, and they'll agree to it. But you have a contract that allows you to hire and work with union talent right from the get-go. So between that and then some new tiered budget agreements that have 4 different rates set for the production budget of your game. So it's like rate 1, tier 1 is under $1 million total production budget. And that
Hmm.
would allow you to hire actors for as little as like $80 an hour, up to the tier 4 or the full agreement, which is back to like 1100 for a 4 hour session. But like,
Hmm.
and that's like for $50 million games or above. So the
Wow.
tiered budget agreements give a lot of flexibility in the number of voices you can do per session and the amount that the sessions charge. That just the flexibility was never there before.
Yeah. Amazing. That's really interesting, actually. It's something that I've been curious about myself, and I'm sure people in this space are curious about, which is no budget games, low budget games, or self-funded games. If they're, going to
Yeah.
Kickstarter in 6 months, how do they get a couple of free voice lines? Do people ever work on rev share? Do people work on some kind of like profit agreement later? If the game makes money, you get some cut or
Sure.
something like
Well,
that.
so the tiered budget agreement kind of takes that into account. And this is one of
Hmm.
the reasons that like it can actually make your life easier to work with the union now as a new developer, is that like all the legal agreements, the protections, the like NDAs, like all the stuff on the back end is already in these contracts. So you don't have to figure out like where do I find a contract to protect myself or to protect the talent or whatever. Like it's already there. And so in this case, the tiered budget agreements make up for the lower upfront session fees by having secondary compensation that happens at predetermined sales like metrics. So in this
Hmm.
case, and they're big, so it won't trigger most of the time. So it's like you get for tier 1, for instance, costs like $337 for a 4 hour session for your actor,
Hmm.
unlimited number of voices. And then if your game sells 500,000 copies, then you
Hmm.
pay the actors a full scale session fee of another like $1,100 at 500,000 copies and at 1 million copies. But every developer I've ever talked to is like, bro, if our game sells 500,000 copies, I would love to pay the actors an extra few thousand
I'll
dollars.
pay
Like
as much as you
that.
want. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So it I think takes that into account. There
Yeah.
isn't like a good revenue share agreement necessarily. But there's that. I mean, you can always do that. I've done a couple
Mhm.
revenue share things in the past, but those have always been non-union.
Mhm.
And it's just kind of whatever the people are willing to agree with.
Of
It's just
course.
hard to like, because am I staying on top of you to like get you to like give me your sales numbers every quarter? Like, and
Yep.
what am I supposed to do that like for 20 different games? Like,
Mhm.
you know,
Secondary agreement
so
sounds like a great option. So how does last question, then we're gonna a couple of community questions
yeah.
in. How does somebody get started with potential union work? Where do they go? Is there a portal somewhere? Do they need to come talk to
Well,
you? Yeah.
so well, yeah, you can certainly talk to me. You can also just email interactive@sagaftra.org.
Okay.
That's like the video game division. Um, they're really, really good. the negotiating committee for the strike and the new interactive people are really great, really knowledgeable right now. But you can also just reach out to me because I don't have a life, and I'm happy to talk to you about this stuff. The other thing is, if you're a talent wanting to figure out how to do union stuff, this also gives you a great pathway into the union, because the main way that you get eligibility to join the actors union, SAG-AFTRA, it's SAGAFTRA, is by doing a union job. And so if you get one of these like student projects, but it's registered with the union, congratulations, now you have union eligibility. So that's a pathway to get into the union. And there's pros and cons to that I don't have time to talk about right now, but you can feel free to hit me up.
Okay. Can you spell that for us one more time? Interactive at?
Yeah. It's interactive at SAG, SAG, AFTRA, AFTRA. Was the Screen Actors Guild merged with the American Federation of Television and Radio Actors back.
Amazing. Wow. We'll drop that in the description for anybody who is listening, so you can send along your emails and get some help. All right, it's time for community questions. We have our first person on the stage. Rick, would you like to begin? Oh, Rick, you are silent. Can't hear you. Can't hear you at all. I can find your question. Let's see. Oh, no. Dead air. Rick, we'll get you for a second question if you can't figure it out. Rick's question is, what are good strategies to create consistency in voice acting quality on a team that operates remotely?
Yeah, that's a great question. First, you should try to ask the talent what microphone, what their signal chain is, and preferably they're either using a shotgun microphone, diaphragm condenser microphone, so something like a TLM 103. They probably don't have a U87, but even like a Blue Yeti can potentially, if it's in a good space, can be usable. It's mostly going to be about, do you have a treated recording space that is free of reflections and outside audio? That, by more than anything, that is what matters. And then beyond that, making sure they all send it completely raw, because you'll get people sending their audio in at oh yeah, well I put a high pass filter on it and some EQ and some compression and blah blah blah, and if you have people sending all that stuff at all these different levels, obviously that's going to create a huge headache for trying to match the audio quality on the back end. So getting totally raw signal is great. And yeah, that's at least I would say the most important thing. I had also wanted to talk about how to direct talent. See, I knew I wasn't going to get around to everything. But
we'll just have to. We'll bring it back in another month or two. To answer your question, Rick.
Oh,
we still can't hear you.
That's a problem with audio people, is they got too many inputs.
Yeah, man.
Who knows where the
Absolutely
audio is actually going.
We've actually had a month straight of not being able to stream because I switched my mic. That was the only thing that actually changed, and then our streaming software got an update that made other jank happen. Anyway. Always a lot of fun.
But anyway, Rick, feel free to reach out to me if that didn't answer your question. You can send me a message.
Absolutely. All right, our next question is from Christy. Christy, would you like to ask your question?
Hi. Yes. Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for all this awesome information. So yeah, I'm founding a new studio. Well, it's already founded, and we're working on a game where we want to have voice acting in it. And I was just wondering, you sort of answered this already by saying that we should potentially reach out to SAG-AFTRA directly. But I was wondering, for a brand new studio looking to add voice acting to their game with little to no budget at all, where are the best places to look for emerging talent or people that are just trying to break in and get started that might want to work with us?
And to be clear, reaching out to the union is not a good place to get you talent. That's a good place to get you information about the contracts. The union won't be able to give you any actors. They will just say, reach out to, talent agencies or whatever, but those actors are also probably going to be kind of expensive. So the best place to reach out to find talent if you're trying to just host your own casting call is a Discord server called the Voice Acting Club. And the Voice Acting Club is probably the biggest community of voice actors on the internet nowadays. They've got like 40,000 members. And much more importantly, it's really well moderated and really well run. And because of that, there's a pretty great community of people at all different skill levels, including quite a few very serious pros. I'm in that channel, but it's started by an actress named Kira Buckland, who is 2B in Near Automata, and she's Jolene in JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, whatever. So very, very serious talent in that server. And they've got a casting call channel that lots of people go to find new work. So you can go there and post your casting call and get lots of talent interested in your game. There's also a worse community called Casting Call Club. And Casting Call Club is like, it's probably the largest free community for posting casting calls, but as a result, like, it is a hive of scum and villainy. There's a lot of people at all ages and all skill levels, and most of it is not very good. But there are some decent people there, and most importantly, you'll get a really large number of submissions. So Casting Call Club, it's free to use. There are a ton of people there. You might find some good ones that submit to you, and especially if you are offering even a little bit of money, put you at the head of the pack, because not many people post paid casting calls there. So that'll get you some attention. And then Twitter, is, you know, it's a Nazi shithole now, but like Twitter does still have a pretty good actor community on it. And even though your visibility will probably get artificially squashed by not paying for an advertisement, you might still be able to get some traction posting it on Twitter. Blue Sky has a lot of actors on it, so I would at least post it on Twitter and Blue Sky, maybe LinkedIn. LinkedIn has surprisingly good visibility too. So there's, but yeah, Voice Acting Club is by far and away my number one.
Amazing.
Or you can reach out to me, and I'll be happy to help you out too.
Okay, great. Would it be okay if I asked a quick follow-up question to that?
Sure, Christy.
Yeah.
So say we do find like talent, what would like how typical is it for us to hire someone to do multiple characters, do voices for multiple characters? Is that typical?
You should. I generally, for like a narrative heavy game, most seasoned-ish actors can do at least like 2 or 3 voices that are pretty distinct. And some utility players can do a bunch, not to just completely toot my own horn, but for Lost Ark, I did more than 60 NPCs. So some of us have a lot of, we are legion.
You ever talk to yourself when you're bored?
Oh, yeah. Constant. So I say that I just figured out a way to monetize my compulsions.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you, Christy. I've got one last question for you. This is from Horb. It's something I'm sure at least a few people are wondering, which is how does one get started with voice acting? So what's the get started with voice acting 101?
Go to Voice Acting Club. Voice Acting Club has so many great free guides and resources, many of which were written by Kira and by the other pros there. There's also an audio and tech channel that like a lot of very seriously talented engineers and like studio side people will be there to tell you how to make like your studio on a budget. And there's the casting call channel there, both paid and free casting calls, so that you've got stuff to immediately like start playing around with. It's really a great community, and I wish that it had existed when I was getting started in the voice acting biz.
Amazing. Awesome. All right. So it is the end of our episode. Before we say goodbye, there's 2 things we like to do. So, Michael, first and foremost, we actually like to assign homework. So what is something that the audience can do in the next week? That'll take them about an hour to practice some of what we talked about here.
Sure. So I'm going to give you 2. So for the people that are listening that are wanting to do voice acting, join the Voice Acting Club and take an hour to start like identifying a place that like whether it's a corner, a little closet, something that you can do that could start to be a treated recording environment. and then just read the FAQ and the like starting voice acting guides on Voice Acting Club. It'll give you a wealth of free info. It's really a great place. And then also consider not doing voice acting because it is a terrible industry right now. It is in such a bad place between AI and how overrated it is. Like if you want to do it professionally, it is not a great time, but it can still be fun. So give it a try for a hobby at least, and you'll have some fun. For the people that are on the studio side, I would say if you're making a game, start thinking of your characters in terms of these like casting sheets, bio breakdowns and stuff. And even if you're not making a game right now, do make one for your D&D character. Do something that like and challenge yourself to think about your creations, your characters in terms of like what's their motivation, what's their backstory, what's their age, height, like physical attributes. What would a voice for them sound like? And then if you are not in a character creation space, but if you're in a like studio programmer kind of space, get together with your development teams, and if you're thinking of putting voice in your game, see if you can direct each other into some characters. Like pick character sheets or whatever, and then ask emotion focused questions. Like try to see if you can get each other into a good performance space, because it'll save you money if you work through those issues with your team members instead of figuring out like in the session that you don't know how to direct an actor.
Genius. I love that.
There's a
All
lot
right.
of different homework for the diverse people.
That's perfect. So we have a branching path homework for this week. So
Yeah,
y'all, if you
exactly.
are a voice actor and you want to work into it, join the voice acting club, do some of the first exercises, create a little recording studio, and then tell us about how that went. Maybe give us a picture of your closet recording studio. If you are on the studio side, write a character bio, something that you would hand off to a voice actor to get them set up and started recording for your character. We'd love to see that posted. That seems like a really fun, easy one for people to try. And then if you are on the engineering or tech side, do a test recording, test implementation, and tell us how that went. We'd love to see homework posted to LinkedIn, especially. You can tag us at the Indie Game Academy, and you can tag Michael Schaube. And you can also, if you're insecure about posting, drop it in the Discord instead. All right, Mike, before we say goodbye, do you have any last words of wisdom or anything you'd like to plug here at the end of the episode?
Let's see. Probably that the world is all on fire, and we all know it is, and yet we persevere. Things will get better, and they wouldn't have to work so hard at crushing our spirit if all of what they believed was actually true. So keep fighting the good fight, everybody. I know the development space and acting space is a very diverse queer space, and just remember the divine right of kings fell worldwide within a single human lifespan. It's not about to come back.
Yep. I tell myself the same thing. I love that. It is a tough time period. One of the most wonderful moments for me in the past couple of months was actually at GDC at the Indie Game Federation Awards, where they said, doing what you do, continuing development, creating games is an act of defiance. And
It
it's
is.
true.
We oppose a death cult. Therefore, our very first weapon is to live.
Yeah, exactly. And to continue your art and to say, I don't care what you do to me. I'm going to still make wonderful, beautiful stuff. All right. Absolutely. It has been a great episode. Michael, thank you so much for your time and for answering our questions. Thank you to those who asked questions, and thank you to those who are live in the audience. We will be here every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. So come by and join us for the next one. There are links to join down below. Michael, we lost you for like 1 second. Are you still there?
Oh, yeah. Goodbye.
Okay, cool. Thank you for being here, Michael. And we'll see everybody again next week.
Game over.